show a spotted phenotype. AC has to be in the genome. Miranda, last question on this, and then we're going to move on. Because the whole exam is not going to be it's going to be like 1 or 2 questions. No, I don't. I mean, I think it's just not intuitive because we've got things moving around, right? If AC is there, things can move around. If the kernel is spotted, things are moving around, and AC is there. Whether it's in the C gene or the genome, it is there. Whether a cell is pigmented or colorless tells you whether that C gene is disrupted by a transposable element. Both of these are transposable elements. Both of these can disrupt the gene. Only this one provides transposase for things to move around. Miranda?
So then I think that might answer my question. If we can't have a purple or pigmented kernel that has BS in the DNA.
You can't have a purple kernel with DS in the genome. You could have a purple kernel with DS in the genome, it just isn't in the C gene. Right? We're talking about one gene in the context of a whole genome. These transposable elements can be anywhere in the genome. The pigmented or colorless is just telling us the status of that one gene, if it's disrupted by the transposable element or not. Okay, imprinting. You might want to talk about the quiz questions, but I've done you a favor and given you even newer questions. So let's work through this. You're welcome. All right, here we go. I'm going to scan and post these tonight, I promise. All these we scan and post. I'm going to stitch and forget you. The IGF-2 gene encodes the gene, or the IGF-2 gene encodes insulin growth factor, protein required for normal growth. In mice, no expression of this gene results in the small mouse. So no IGF-2 expression. Small little mouse. It is maternally imprinted and autosomal. All genes are maternally imprinted, or all genes that are imprinted are autosomal. Maternally imprinted. This says that the allele inherited from the female parent is epigenetically silenced. Regardless of whether the DNA sequence is wild type or if it's a null allele or a frame shift mutation, who cares what the DNA sequence is, it is going to be epigenetically silenced. There's going to be modifications to histones, like removal of acetyl groups, hypoacetylation, methylation of DNA, all the things you'd expect to drive heterochromatin. The alleles inherited in the female the allele inherited from the female parent is epigenetic silence, and then in any female meiosis, right, all alleles will be reset to silenced. A female mouse is homozygous for null alleles of this gene. IGF minus, IGF minus. One of these are going to be silenced in her. We don't know which one, but one of them, right? Epigenetically silenced. What's her phenotype? Small. She'd be small. One of them is silenced, but both of them are null alleles, meaning there's a mutation in the DNA sequence that's rendering it null. No functional product made. She's small. It mates with a male mouse that is homozygous wild type for the gene. So in this male mouse, he's got one allele that's epigenetically silenced. It's red. That's imprinted. The other allele would be on. Right? And this would be the one that inherited from the maternal parent. What are the expected proportions of their progeny? These are the two alleles in that female mouse. What happens to these two alleles if they are packaged right? Every egg will get one of the two. What happens to them if it's maternally imprinted and she's a female? They're going to be silent. So in all of the eggs, red equals silenced. Epigenetically. Let's do that. How about that? Is that okay? These are her eggs. What happens to his alleles in meiosis, right? If it's maternally imprinted and he's a male, they're going to be reset to on. IGF2, IGF2. All on. So that if this sperm fertilizes this egg, all progeny are going to get a wild type allele of IGF from dad. And it's going to be transcriptionally active. We'll do blue, on. The allele they inherit from the male parent will be on. Mom only has null alleles to give, and they're both going to be epigenetically silenced. What's the phenotype of all the progeny? Wild type. All wild type. Because of the expression from the paternal allele. Let's keep rolling with this. Let's switch it up. The female mouse is now homozygous for wild type alleles of the IGF2 gene. So here we go. Hers are IGF, IGF. One will be silenced, the one that she inherited from her maternal parent. The one that she inherited from her paternal parent will be on. In meiosis, in her, they're going to be packaged into eggs. Are they going to be silenced or not silenced? Silenced, because it's maternally imprinted. Off. Off. All off. These are the eggs. Mates with a male mouse that is heterozygous for a null allele of the IGF2 gene. So IGF wild type, IGF minus. Based on that alone, can you call what his phenotype is? We can't call it. What if the IGF null that he has is the maternal allele? Is he wild type or is he mutant? Wild type, because this one's already silenced. Maternal allele provides wild type expression. What if the null allele he has is the one he inherited from his paternal parent? Is he wild type or mutant? Mutant. Because the allele he inherited from his paternal parent, which is epigenetically active, is null. This allele that he would have inherited from his maternal parent would be silenced. So he'd have no expression. He'd be mutant. I'm not going to color code these because we don't know. It doesn't say in the question. Sorry, so female, male. So in meiosis, what's going to happen to both of these alleles? On or off? On. It's maternally imprinted. He's a male, so they will be reset to be on. The mother will give a silent wild type allele to all progeny. And then progeny can either inherit a wild type allele from dad or a null allele from dad. What's the phenotype of these progeny? Wild type. What's the phenotype of these? Mutant. 50-50. Blue on, so transcriptionally active. In every single case, the allele inherited from mom is silenced because it's maternally imprinted. In every single case, if it's a female, all of the alleles are reset to be silenced in meiosis because she's a female. And if it's a male in both of these, all of the alleles are reset to be active because it's maternally imprinted. Parent of origin imprinting means parent of origin pattern of silencing, but then that pattern is reset in meiosis based on the sex of the individual. Yes, your name?
Aaron.
Aaron.
So at the top you have IGF in red and then IGF minus in blue next to the female mouse with homozygous. Why is IGF minus not red also? Because isn't there a chance you could have a non-silenced allele transport over them?
Right, you're talking about right here?
Yeah.
And you're saying, why is this one not red?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just using the red and the blue as indications of epigenetic silencing. This one is red because it's the maternal allele, and so it would be epigenetically silenced. This one, it's a null allele, meaning there's a mutation in the DNA sequence that's rendering it null, no functional protein product made. But it's not epigenetic silenced from imprinting because this would have been inherited from the paternal parent.
Oh, okay, got it.
So I'm using the colors to just indicate blue euchromatin, right? Is that allele in a region of euchromatin?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that allele in a region of heterochromatin?
Thank you.
Not an indication of whether they're null or wild type at the sequence level. Any other imprinting questions? You could ask the same question and make it paternally imprinted if you want to give yourself more practice. Run through these questions again and make the allele paternally imprinted and you see a different pattern. If anyone wants more practice with that. Okay, microarray and microRNA. I don't know if you've seen this one before. Let's just ignore what it's telling us at the moment. MicroRNAs, what do? They inhibit translation of other genes. Your favorite gene in red. If it's transcribed, transcription, you're going to have your favorite gene mRNA. YFG mRNA. If it's translated, you would have the YFG protein, YFP. But if there's a microRNA, that regulates YFG, it regulates it here by having sequence complementarity to the mRNA and blocks translation of that mRNA. So just a brief summary. Anytime we're talking about microRNAs, they inhibit translation of other genes. That's what they do. It would not be correct to say that microRNAs activate translation or transcription or expression of other genes, at least not directly. Okay, so recently microRNAs have been implicated in regulating expression of this gene. Below is microarray data showing the amount of expression of different microRNAs, where each row corresponds to the different microRNA indicated. So microRNA 1, 2, 3 through 5, right, each row. The columns show levels of the microRNAs in cell samples from patients with Tay-Sachs. And I don't think it's right here, but Tay-Sachs is, they have no hexa. Unaffected is hexa. Tay-Sachs results when there's no hexane protein made. And then this, right, high expression, so the levels, the regions where it's darker, that means there's a lot of that microRNA present. Where it's lighter, that means there's less of that microRNA present, and then each column is just a different sample. So, just based on this alone, a microRNA that regulates hexa, would you expect it to be found in high levels in unaffected or patients with Tay-Sachs? Patients with Tay-Sachs, right? High levels of that microRNA means you're not going to get translation of the hexa. You'd have low levels of that protein, and if you have no or low levels of that protein, you have this disease. Questions about that? So which microRNAs do we see in high levels? 1, 2, and 3 are all potential microRNAs for regulating hexa based on the data. Please stop me if there's any questions about this. All right. We can just look at the answers, and anywhere it says activates, nope, nope, incorrect. This says transcription. That's incorrect. MicroRNAs don't inhibit transcription, they inhibit translation. Now we're down to 2 answer options. And we just said, without even looking at the answer options, we already answered the questions that 1, 2, or 3 inhibit translation or regulate hexa. The only one that's listed is this. You guys are looking at me like you're mad. Feeling uncomfortable. Is everyone, are you not happy with this question? I saw a hand. Yes.
So when it say that the microRNAs regulate the expression of the protein, then that means that what inhibits that gene from
Whenever it says that microRNA regulates another gene, that means that that microRNA inhibits translation of that gene, always.
will lead to some kind of like diseases or something. So that's
Not that it would lead to some kind of disease. This question, if it was on an exam, there would have been more words to describe that, like Tay-Sachs results when there's no hexa protein made, something like that, to let you know what the disease state results from. Any other questions about this or what the data is showing you, or microRNAs? Here we are. I posted the homework key right before I came here. So that's there. This is 27 and 28 on the practice exam. It's also on the homework. We went through a different example in class yesterday, and so you're welcome to go back to that lecture video and walk through that example, which was of an autosomal trait. This is of an X-linked one, right? This gene is X-linked. A recessive mutation in this gene causes red-green color blindness. A VNTR molecular marker is 2 map units away from this gene. Does anybody have questions about what VNTRs are? You can just raise your hand and not even ask a question. Do you want me to review what a VNTR is? Let's say on chromosome 3, and every single one of you in here who has a chromosome 3, at this position on chromosome chromosome 3, we've got VNTR 101. All of you have that VNTR at that position on chromosome 3. That VNTR allele happens to be GGCAA, that sequence. On my chromosome 3, on one allele, I have GGCAA. I have that repeated 12 times. That repeats 12 times in a row. Let's say that's the allele I inherited from my paternal parent. On my other homolog of chromosome 3, I have this repeat at that location, repeated 23 times. That's the allele I inherited from my mom. Okay. One of you on your chromosome 3 at that position, you had this repeated 3 times, and I'll just draw it out. GGCAA, GGCAA. 3 repeats. On the other homolog, you have this repeat at that position, repeated 13 times. So this VNTR is at that position. This is the sequence. The number of times it repeats varies. And so each number of these repeats represent different alleles of that. Just like how we can all have different alleles of a gene because it's a change in the DNA sequence, we can have different alleles of a VNTR. Questions about that? Right next to this VNTR, here it comes again, is our favorite gene. YFG. On chromosome 3, we also have YFG. Our favorite gene is physically linked on this chromosome. Both of my YFG alleles are wild type. The poor student has a null allele of YFG. And this null allele of YFG happens to be linked on the same homolog that has the 13 repeats. And so we predict that this 13 repeat VNTR would segregate together with this null allele. Questions about that? Is that good on the VNTRs? Does that help? Are there more questions about that? Okay. So we were tracking this gene that is linked to a VNTR, and it's 2 map units away, bold and underlined. There are 3 alleles of this VNTR, 3 repeats, 5 repeats, and 7 repeats. So these are the 3 different alleles that people have for this. Below is a pedigree tracking red-green color blindness, as well as gel electrophoresis of PCR of the VNTR genotypes. Individual A has red-green color blindness. Individual A is a male because they are a square in the pedigree. I didn't mean it like that. Individual A has how many X chromosomes? 1. What's the OPM-S1 allele on that X chromosome? Recessive null, right? Null. They're colorblind. So this person on their X chromosome has O minus, and that's linked on that same homolog to a VNTR. What allele does he have of the VNTR? How many repeats does he have? 5. Right here. 5 repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other chromosome is a Y. Individual B is a female because she's a circle. she inherited one X chromosome from the father, presumably this one, that's the only one he has to give. Right, so if we look at individual B, we have an X chromosome with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 repeats, and on that X chromosome is the null allele of the OPN inherited from his father. She also inherited an X chromosome. So here, these are the two X chromosome homologs in individual B. She also inherited an X chromosome from her mother. What type of OPNS1 allele, null or wild type? Wild type, but she's not colorblind. O plus. How many repeats were linked to this on the chromatid she inherited from her mom? 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, 5. This one came from her. This one came from her. Individual C, X, Y, not colorblind. What's the most likely genotype of the OPNS1 gene and a linked BNTR for individual B? We just did individual B, right? Heterozygous for the OPNS1 gene, alleles 5 and 7. Individual C has a Y chromosome. It's individual C. They have a wild type allele of OPNS1W because they are not colorblind. And on their X chromosome with that wild type allele, how many VNTRs do they have? 3. 1, 2, 3. Individual B is pregnant with a child. That's individual D, the baby. Given all of this information and the VNTR genotype shown, what is the probability that they will be colorblind? All right. Is individual D male or female? Male. Right? They only have one X chromosome. They only have one X chromosome, male. This is different than the example in class where everyone had 2. But this is X-linked. 1 X chromosome, 1 VNTR allele. They have to be male. Questions about why that is? So we know that they have a Y chromosome. That means individual D could have inherited this X chromosome from mom or this X chromosome from mom. Based on the repeat of the VNTR, which one do we think they inherited? This one. So everything suggests that they inherited 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 VNTR, O minus. They'd be colorblind, right? Is there anything that's bold and underlined that we haven't taken into account?
2 map units.
2 map units away. That means that in meiosis, there's going to be recombination between these two, between this locus and this locus, 2% of the time. So that means that 2% of the progeny will be recombinant. So we know he inherited the 5 repeat allele, but there is a 2% chance that he is recombinant for the X chromosome. And if he's recombinant, that means that the 5 repeat would now be linked to the wild type allele. Questions about that? Yeah.
If the progeny was wild type, would they have a 2% chance of being colorblind?
So the question is, if he had a 7 repeat, if D had 7 repeats, right? And I said, what's the probability of them being colorblind? It'd be 2%. We're saying it's 100% that they're colorblind based on him inheriting this VNTR if there was no recombination. But because there's a 2% chance of recombination, there's a 98% chance of him being colorblind. Right, which would be the parental genotype.
Are we assuming that he's male because of the 5
Are we assuming that he's male because of the 5
repeats?
repeats? We're assuming that he's male because these VNTRs are on the X chromosome. He could have, if he was female, he would have inherited an X chromosome from dad, C, which has 3 repeats. There is no 3 repeat here, and on top of that, there's not even 2 alleles, right? These 2 alleles represent one allele on one X chromosome, one allele on the other. Just like individual A only has one X chromosome, they have one VNTR. Because it's X-linked. So we're assuming he's male because he has only one VNTR allele, and because he didn't inherit an X chromosome from dad, which would be the 3 VNTRs. Any other questions about this? So again, right, we have to, this map units just tells us then the probability that they're recombinant. And for this one, that recombination happened in the mother. Evelyn?
So for the very end of the question where it says the probability of the color blindness, the correct answer would be 98%.
98%. 2% recombinant or not colorblind. These answers would be reversed if D had the 7 repeats instead of the 5. Hopefully that didn't make things worse. Yes.
If the question was worded so that you were asking about the probability of color blindness, you would be asking if not of no color blindness, then it would be 2%.
Yes, if it was all of that same setup and the question what's the probability that they're not colorblind, it'd be 2%. PCR practice exam question number 6. We want to amplify this DNA sequence. Is it in focus for you? What are the primers we would use? I didn't draw out primer design for PCR. It's DNA replication. If we want to amplify this, we know that DNA replication is going to occur 5' to 3', and that it's going to be anti-parallel and complementary to the templates, right? Each one of these are the templates. They're going to come apart and they're going to serve as a template. So if we want a primer to the top strand, do we want that primer, right, and it's going to serve as a 3' hydroxyl to add nucleotides to. Do we want that primer on the left or on the right? We want the primer 5' to 3' because we'd be adding nucleotides. And so the 5', this sequence would be 5' A, G, G, T, C. We wouldn't put our primer here going that direction because that'd be synthesizing DNA in parallel to this template. Would we want the primer on the right or the left here? The left. 5' anti-parallel, G, G, C, T, K. 3' going that direction. So I would go 5' G, G, C, T. 5' G, nope, that's not there. 5' G, G, nope, that's not there. 5' G, nope. 5' G, G, C, T, that one's there. 5' A, G, G, T, C. There we go. Questions about that? just DNA replication. Cloning and restriction enzyme analysis. So we're gonna do the practice exam questions 19 through 21. 21's not cloning, but someone had asked about it on Piaxis, so. You want to clone the full open reading frame of BRCA1 into the cloning vector of PBS1. Here's the cloning vector. To ensure this plasmid map is correct, so you want to make sure the map you have is correct, you perform different digests and run the digest products out. And it's saying what, in lane 3, what enzyme did you cut this with? Why don't we just go through each lane? What's lane 2? What is this cut with? Which enzymes or enzyme would you use and it would only cut it once or make one linear fragment? Hindi3 or EcoR1, not both, just one of them, right? If you have a circular molecule and you cut it once, you just make one long linear piece of DNA. And this, if you cut this once, it would run at 2,500 base pairs or 2.5 kb. So this was cut with either, lane 2 is either EcoR1 or Hindi3, but not both. Okay. Lane 3, we have 1, 2, 3 fragments. Tetris. Trial and error, chop it up. What fits? We have one fragment that's 500 base pairs. We have one that's 700 base pairs. And this one around between, right? More than 1,000, less than 2,000. 15, 1,300, something like that. 17. Oh, and we missed up here, right? This is 7 kb or 700 base pairs. 300 kb, 300 base pairs. 1 kb, 1,000 base pairs. This is 2, and this is a 2.5 kb plasmid, so what's the distance here? 500 base pairs, or 0.5 kb. What 2 enzymes would we cut with? Or is there any one enzyme you could cut with alone and get 3 fragments? No, we'd have to cut with 2, right? PST1 would cut here and here, would get this fragment and this one. Cutting with Eco or Hindi would just give us 1 long fragment. So we're cutting with 2 fragments, or cutting with 2 enzymes. What would we cut with to give us a 700 and a 500 base pair fragment? PST, cut here and here, so we get a 700 fragment. Hindi3 would give us a 500 pit fragment, and then a 1,300 fragment. 500, 700, goes up 1,300. Do we want to go through what lane 4 was digested with, or are we okay? Okay. PST and Hindi3. All right. Let's go through this one now. Number 20. You use EcoR1 to clone the full length, this 1.6 kilobase pair, 1,600 base pair. We use EcoR1, so we're going to cut here, and we're going to cut here, 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 and here. To clone the full-length BRCA1 open reading frame into the vector. So we take this, put it in there. I will draw that out if you would like me to. Make this red. This is going to be 1.6 kilobase pairs, or 1600. We're going to have an EcoR1 site there and EcoR1 site there. We're going to have a PST1 site 300 base pairs away, another PST1 site 700 base pairs away. The Hindi site is going to be 500 base pairs away, and then 1,000. Within this, right, we have a PST site here, a PST site here, and then another one of unknown fragments. But they're all right within the region you cloned, so they're still in it there. You good? So I just drew out what that first sentence described. Cutting this with EcoR1 and cloning it into that. And so this is then our recombinant molecule. Right, the recombinant molecule is the one when you put the DNA insert into your vector. You then digest this recombinant molecule, or plasmid, with the insert in, under various restriction enzyme reactions to ensure it's all good. Which of the following digest products, so we've got different products listed, correspond to this plasmid, being cut? So we've got enzymes listed and products. Which one's correct? How big is this plasmid total of 2.5 plus 1.6? 4.1. Hindi 3. If we cut it with Hindi 3, how many times is it going to cut this? Once. How long is that linear piece of DNA going to be? 4.1. Oh, this is a solid possibility. But if you don't want to stop there, you just want to make sure, if you cut with PST1, how many fragments are you going to have? 1, 2, 3, 4, and you want 5, 6. 6 fragments. There's only 3 listed here, so that's not correct. Same here, that's not correct. PST1 cut here, that's not correct. We already said if we cut with only Hindi, we'd only get 1 fragment. That's not correct. Questions about that? Anytime you're doing cloning and restriction digest, I think it really, if the molecule's not drawn, it helps to draw it. And then it's just a matter of saying how many fragments and what are their sizes. Questions about that? Checking through the list here. It's a Davis member. Sorry, they called me 3 times. No message though. Okay. Replication slippage. G, C, T, 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 G, T. This is the template strand. And this is the new strand. C, C. And if DNA polymerase adds an A, and then adds another A, so that A slips out. So we have slippage of the new strand. Right? DNA polymerase, I like to think of, has short-term memory loss. It doesn't know it just added an A. All it knows is that there's a T here to add an A opposite to. So it will add that, even though it already added one. That slipped away. It's still in the strand, but it popped off. It's not base paired. Now we'll continue. After another round of replication, do we have an insertion or a deletion? Insertion. insertion. Five prime G, C, T, 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 G, G, 3 prime. We got new strand, same thing, template, new. T, let's say now in this case, the T slipped out of the template strand. DNA polymerase also isn't too curious. It's not going to go looking for anything. So if it slips out of the template strand, it's not going to know that there's a T there. It's just going to keep going. And it physically loops out. So we've got slippage of the template. After another round of replication, is this going to lead to a deletion or an insertion? Deletion.
But that one's T, T.
Okay. Replication slippage leads to insertions or deletions. If this happens within an open reading frame, what type of mutation could it potentially lead to? Frame shift.
So it slips out, but it keeps after.
Replication
So
slippage.
it inserts it.
Questions about that?
For the new strain.
Oh, why is it? Because I'm. Why? Because I don't know my base pairing rules.
Yeah.
Can't believe I wrote. Can't believe I had lots of conversation over that. Right. There we go. All of those. Okay. Here. I was testing you to see. Okay. Meiosis non-disjunction practice final. All right. Number 31. A female Drosophila fly is homozygous for a null allele of the X-linked white gene. So what kind of sex chromosome does she have? What kind of sex chromosome genotype? XX, XY, XX, little alleles. Right. White eyes, not red. And she mates with a red-eyed male fly, XW plus Y. Non-disjunction of the X chromosome occurs in meiosis 1 in this female fly. Here we go. Let's draw it on a big piece of paper. 11. Okay. So in this female fly, this is XW, XW. So I'll just put the W, W. These are her X, two X homologs. After replication, we're going to have, replicated homologs, a pair of sister chromatids in meiosis 1. They would typically align and segregate opposite. And the reason they align was because a SPO11 made a double strand break that was repaired by homologous recombination, and there's a physical connection happening while repairing that double strand break. That's why they're aligned. Otherwise, they wouldn't have anything to do with each other. Right? Non-disjunction occurs, and so they all go to the same side. In meiosis 2, we're gonna have cells with everything else segregating, all the sisters, but no X chromosomes. Here now, we're going to have the two replicated homologs, or the two pairs of sisters. And those are gonna segregate away from each other just fine. Leading to eggs, right, that have no X, null, null, or eggs that have, this is XW, XW, this is the sex chromosome genotype, and here I'm just illustrating the actual chromatid. XW, XW. No. These eggs, right, will be fertilized from gametes from this fly. This fly will either produce gametes, sperm with a Y chromosome, or sperm with an XW plus. Okay. Fair enough? And so we can add an XW plus, or we can add a Y. These are from the sperm. Yeah, yell at me to move it, I can't. Right? And it's asking, the question was asking about progeny, not gametes, progeny. So we're either going to have XW plus null, or we're going to have XW plus XW, XW. Or we're going to have Y null, or Y XW, XW. Progeny genotypes. Questions about that? XW plus XW plus Y, not one of these four. XW plus XWY, not one of these four. XW plus XW plus XW, that would be if non-disjunction occurred in meiosis 1 male fly. That's not what was described here. XW, XWY, right here. XWYY, again, if non-disjunction occurred in the male fly, that would be an option. Thomas? Can you repeat your question? Oh, if I asked, what, right, this fly and this fly are both females because they have two X chromosomes. This would be a red-eyed female, this would be a white-eyed female. Over here, this would be a male with red eyes. Because no, not two X chromosomes. Shannon?
If there was non-disjunction in the male, can the X and the Y segregate on one side together and the other X and Y? Instead of like the X and the X and the Y and the Y?
You guys want me to draw non-disjunction of the sex chromosomes in a male? If there's non-disjunction in a male fly in meiosis 1, all of the sex chromosomes are going to go together. You would never have the X and the Y separating from each other. I'm sorry. The X and Y normally separate from each other in meiosis 1. So the only time they would stay together is if you have non-disjunction in meiosis 1. And if you have non-disjunction in meiosis 2, they've already separated. You need me to draw? You want me to draw it out really quick? I can be super speedy.
Yes.
All right. Okay, male fly, male human, male mammal, male. You got an X chromosome and a Y chromosome. X, Y. After DNA replication, you have the two X chromosomes, the two chromatids, you have the two Ys. Normally in meiosis 1, these would segregate away from each other. So normal, right? You got the 2x, the 2y's, and then in meiosis 2, meiosis 1, this is meiosis 2, and you would have sperm with just 1x, or 1y, squiggle, squiggle, y. If non-disjunction happens in meiosis 1, they would all go together. So then you'd have gametes that are missing. So you'd have sperm with no sex chromosomes. In meiosis 2, though, the X sister chromatids would still align and separate opposite, and so would the Y. And so now we would have sperm that have both X and Y. X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, nothing, nothing. Jenna.
So could it be like XX and YY in the resulting, like it wouldn't segregate?
No, you wouldn't have XX and YY.
Okay.
You can't explain XX and YY. The only way you would have one gamete XX and one gamete YY all from the same round of meiosis if you had non-disjunction in meiosis 2 on both the X and the Y, which would be extremely rare. Like they would have to segregate fine here, then you'd have to have, sorry, then you'd have to segregate fine here, then you'd have non-disjunction meiosis 2 here, at the same time non-disjunction here. Then you'd have one gamete YY, one gamete nothing, one gamete nothing, one gamete XX. That'd be the only time. Thomas?
For the answer choice, there was X plus, and then X. Was that as a result of the meiosis 2 non-dysfunction and a nil?
X plus XW. This could result from non-disjunction in meiosis 2 in a male fly. Because here we did non-disjunction in meiosis 1, you get an X and a Y, not XX or YY. Number 12. Okay. 10. We okay with that? 10, 11, 12. We're going to at least get through here. Black operon, cap, cyclic AMP, practice question 24 and 30. Who writes? 13. So this is practice question 24 on the final exam. There's a new mutation in the LAC-I gene called I superscript N that introduces a missense in the DNA binding domain, and it cannot bind to the operator. IN cannot bind to operator. Does it matter, this alone, whether or not we have lactose if IN cannot bind to the operator? It does not. The operator would be unbound by repressor. Transcription would be on in both cases, right? Plus, 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 plus. This has a null allele of the Z gene, so we would get no Z, so it would actually be minus plus because the null allele of the Z gene here. Right? Okay. What would this look like? So the answer to this is A. What would this look like if now this condition we had glucose? Is there a question in the back? Sorry. Wouldn't it be all off? Oh, yes. 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 I thought you had a question before. Yes. Yes. So if there's glucose, high levels of glucose means low levels of cyclic AMP, which is the allosteric activator of CAP, which binds and recruits RNA polymerase. So when we're thinking about the lac operon, glucose, is RNA polymerase there? What's the deal with the promoter? In the presence of glucose, RNA polymerase is not there, so it would be minus, minus. We'll just do minus, minus. In the absence of glucose, now RNA, now we've got high levels of cyclic AMP. CAP is activated by its allosteric activator. It will bind and recruit RNA polymerase. So now we have RNA polymerase at the promoter. Then the second question is, if RNA polymerase is there ready to go, is there anything at the operator preventing it? What's the deal with the promoter? What's the deal with the operator? Here we have a repressor that can't bind the operator, so nothing's there. So transcription will be on. We still don't have the Z gene because this is minus, minus, plus. Questions about that?
So if glucose is not mentioned in the question, we just assume that it's low.
If glucose is not mentioned in the question, you should assume it's not there. I think I was careful to mention it if there's a question about it. Okay, the other one was 30. Any questions about that? And you have lots of lac operant questions. I surely don't encourage you to go and spend your whole time answering every single one of them. Pick one or two, add and subtract glucose to the different genotypes you've been given if you want practice on any of those. Okay? All right. 30, 30, 30. Which of the following statements is true regarding the role of cyclic AMP in expression? So let's just not even look at the answer choices. Let's not get worried about that, and let's just remind ourselves what cyclic AMP does. Is cyclic AMP a positive or negative regulator of the lac operon? Positive regulator of the lac operon. Is it a positive or negative regulator of CAP? Positive regulator of CAP. All right, so we've got that. We didn't even worry about the answer choices. We're confident in that without an answer choice confusing us, right? Sometimes if multiple choice isn't your thing, hide the answers and answer the question on your own. And then find one that matches. Cyclic AMP is